Isn't it time you got to know your technology leaders? You're listening to Off the Record with GTRA, and I'm your host, Kelly Oakham. So grab your coffee or cocktail and join us for our casual yet intimate and thought-provoking expose on our top council members, ambassadors, technology innovators, and thought leaders. Thank you for tuning in today to Off the Record with GTRA. I'm very excited to announce today's guest, Michael Crouse, the Director of Federal Technical Sales and Insider Threat Strategies with Forcepoint Federal. Thanks for joining us, Michael.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I would like to kick things off with getting to know a bit more about your educational background and how you got started in technology.
Okay. Well, basically, I started in technology as a young engineer working for the National Security Agency and kind of grew my skills, grew my career through working not only with NSA, but through various companies across the board. I worked with Stanford Telecom, ITT Industries, General Dynamics, Raytheon, and now Forcepoint. And I kind of started at the University of Akron, a young undergraduate working on my Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, and I had the opportunity to get my master's in EE with Johns Hopkins University. And since that time, I've been able to expand my knowledge, expand my understanding of the problems by getting my program manager certification from PMI, as well as working with a unique organization called Carnegie Mellon to become a certified insider threat program manager through their Software Engineering Institute.
Now, the big burning question, Ohio State Buckeye fan?
OH.
Now, I heard you started. Yeah, exactly. Now, I heard you started your 11-year insider threat cyber career with a small company out of Salt Lake City. I actually grew up in Salt Lake. I'd like to hear more about your journey on this industry.
Well, great. So the small company was interesting. So Salt Lake City was a small company called Oakley Networks. We were formed by two gentlemen, Derek Smith and Taft Price, and we were formed originally out of an information product. We were looking basically to how to protect at very, operationally unfriendly locations across the world of people that would potentially be logging into those machines. We could audit those machines and actually send information back to a respective organization. That actually led itself to more of a defensive, more to the insider threat problem from a large enterprise point of view. First doing an operations, we're actually working more in large enterprises with large companies, Fortune 100, U.S. government companies. And that kind of lent itself to developing what we call a user activity monitoring solution, where we're actually looking at auditing behavior from an endpoint, where we call kind of the sticky, the pointy edge of the sword, where all the activity is happening, not on the network layer, but on the endpoint layer. So we work a lot with federal customers today. We work a lot with the National Insider Threat Task Force, who's responsible for putting in the guidelines for insider threat across the United States government. But over the last years, we've been able to expand that, working with Fortune 100 companies and being able to protect similar information, whether it's intellectual property, whether it's from fraud, waste, and abuse. So the journey has kind of been a very interesting journey from a very small company to a larger company in Raytheon, and now to a joint venture called Forcepoint.
Wonderful. What would you say drives your passion for security?
It's all about the customer to me. So this probably gets me in trouble with a lot of my colleagues, because if you look at business is all about churning out the numbers, all about making money, profits. To me, what motivates me is making the customer successful. If you look at what we've done in the past from an Oakley Networks day where we only had one customer, that was actually our customer, our product, using our product, where we were able to grow it to 30 to 40 to 50 customers. It all happened because we were customer focused. We love working with customers on the ground. We love to have boots on the ground, and we love to solve their problems. So what I always say is, if you can solve the customer's problem, the business stuff will take care of it. And if you're involved with the customer, if you're a partner with the customer, and that's what we kind of say, we're mission partners, we can affect change. We can actually affect the way they do business, affect how we're protecting information, not only in the United States government, but how we're protecting corporate information as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure a lot of people on the federal side will love to hear that. From where you are today in your career, what would you say is some of your more memorable accomplishments?
So it's interesting. So if you ever worked in a small company, I think a lot of people have, everybody has this story. But when you're working with a small company, you're kind of the jack of all trades. When I came from a large company of General Dynamics back in over 11 or 12 years ago, we started an organization, Oakley Networks, and there was only one person in the East Coast. That was my friend Ted. Ted hired me. We hired a couple other, 3 or 4 people. And our opportunity was to grow a business on the East Coast, where we not only were doing contracts, we're not only doing security, but we were doing on-site technical support. We were the troubleshooters. We were the operations guys. We were the people that were pretty much doing everything from a customer. This was neat. This was unique because we were actually building programs with the customers, from 10 or 11 years ago through now. I mean, when we started, we did not have one professional services individual. And now we have a professional services team with cleared personnel that's over 100 plus that are working with customers on a daily basis. And to me, that was the most exciting and the most challenging thing, that from building an organization from the ground up and actually, sustaining customers. Today, we actually get our renewals are like 99%. So
Wow.
That tells me that we're doing something right. That tells me that we're actually, the customer believes in us, believes in our mission, and actually we're producing for them. To me, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. How about awards, recognitions, and things like that you've received?
So a lot of my awards I've received in the past was my work with the government. I've received the NSA's Director of Productivity Improvement Award and the CIA's Meritorious Unit Citation Award. Both of those were more business awards, in fact. They were basically showing a significant return on investment to other government stakeholders in our programs and projects. So even from a government point of view, they're always looking ways to be more efficient and effective in the way you're applying your technologies. So both those awards kind of started, kind of my trend towards looking at the best way to effectively solve a customer's problem. So those were kind of two early on awards that I'm very proud of today.
Wonderful. Congratulations. What goals do you have for federal cyber threats?
So the trend today is, one of the things that we've noticed in the trend is that we've done a tremendous job of collecting information. You kind of throw on a SIG hat. SIG and cyber are taking parallel paths. If you look at the traditional signal intelligence problem, it's that they collected a tremendous amount of information, but they really didn't know what to do with it. They didn't have the analytics to actually deal with all the amount of data. They would get the big fire hose come in. You would have analytics that would try to cipher through it to make sense of it. And if you look at cyber's kind of in the same problem. Cyber is, and we're all guilty of it, we collect a tremendous amount of information. In some cases, we do a lot of pre-processing or pre-policy filtering up front, which is a needed solution. But for most customers, they want to collect everything. They want to bring all the information in because they just don't know what the problem is. So one of the challenges is building behavioral analytics that can actually sift through this data, and then they can bring up real-world anomalies or real-world events that are actionable. So it's not just to put up information that says, okay, I just threw up an alert or an event, here it is. You have to be able to show actionable items from it. You might have to show how you might respond from an incident response mechanism. So it's not only being able to collect all the information, which is key, but it's able to make sense of the information. And that is where the emerging technologies, and we are using user behavior analytics. If you go online, you'll see a lot of vendors that will actually be discussing UBA, user behavior analytics. And to me, I think that's where the trend is. That's where the market's starting to evolve.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, what would you say are some of the challenges and lessons learned working with your customers over the last 11 years?
So a couple things. First of all, I think a lot of challenges, a lot of these UBA, user behavior analytics vendors are coming up with, is they don't understand real-world operational cases. They might build some analytics, maybe they'll build some volumetric analytics, but they don't understand specific use cases that can be programmed into algorithms. So to me, that's one of the biggest challenges. Allowing the vendors, allowing the people that are responsible for developing these into these spaces to start understanding the use cases, understanding the operational lessons learned. And you could take those lessons learned and you could start building those algorithms, building those analytics, building those use cases into something that's actionable. In the past, if you looked in the past, what we were doing, a lot of people didn't talk about insider threat. A lot of people didn't want to discuss it because it was very, kind of for most companies, it was touchy because of the fact that you've hired somebody that has decided to do harm against your company, whether it's trying to do harm by taking information, whether it's doing IT sabotage, or even trying to waste time in a fraud, waste, and abuse approach. So it's actually bringing that information up to a point that it can be used by others to help improve algorithms. And that's one of the biggest challenges. You know, I'm lucky for the sake of I've been doing this for over 11 years, over 12 years. So I've seen a lot of operational cases, you know, so I have a wealth of knowledge that I can share with our internal teams when they're developing algorithms. But the problem is a lot of people don't have that experience. A lot of people are missing that. And I think that's a challenge, exposing that information in a responsible manner to allow people to help.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems pretty critical. Why do you think it's a challenge, you know, working with people to understand the value and importance of insider threats?
Because it's hard to, everybody's built on dollars and cents, and everybody wants to understand return on investment. If you look at even a risk management system, a risk management program, sometimes it's difficult to show an ROI. You know, when you have these decision makers who are controlling budgets, understanding budgets, they want to know if I'm going to invest X dollars, if I'm going to invest $1 million, you know, what is that going to save me from a company point of view? Or what is my value going to get out of making this investment for $1 million? The investment could be in technologies. It could be in people. It could be internal process improvements. But a lot of organizations want to understand, hey, I'm investing money. What am I going to get out of it? So getting that return on investment, being able to quantify the return on investment, which is a key point, and being able to show that to people that are controlling the purse strings is a very challenging deal, very challenging for anybody who's actually putting together an effective program.
You know, I think that you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who has gone through something like an insider threat who wouldn't understand the value. I think it's obviously a challenge, though, when it's building a case to, you know, a company or an agency who hasn't gone through the nightmare and the cost and the drain that it causes.
Yeah, and that's where you have to have out-of-the-box thinkers. You have to look beyond just for example, you have to look beyond just, you know, what's happening present day. You have to be able to look and say, put your in the shoes of, okay, I haven't had a breach today, but if I had a breach, what would be my risks, or for the breach point of view? Is my brand going to be damaged? Is my reputation going to be damaged? If my brand's damaged and my reputation's damaged, yes, that's not a monetary value that you can quantify. But you know what? That might make it harder to recruit. That might make it harder for us to partner with other organizations in maybe strategic opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I think there's too much of the people want a one-for-one, that if I invest $1, I want $1. If you've already had a breach, you know that it's severe. But if you haven't had a breach, a lot of people will go, well, they're almost gambling. They're rolling the dice. And you have to be able to show them the fact that, yes, you can roll the dice. You can sit there and not worry about it and kind of put your head in the sand and not address the problem and think it's all about external threats. It's all about APT. It's all about malware. But they just don't understand that somebody who actually breaches you from an insider point of view can do more significant damage, not only from a money point of view, from a monetary point of view, but also from a reputation, from a brand point of view. And you have to think of those things as well when you're looking at ROI.
Yeah, we've actually seen this firsthand, from GTRA many, many times over through some of our partners or even to some extent in our own organization. And I think one of the biggest problems is that nobody wants to actually talk about it and their own personal vulnerabilities. They can keep it much more quiet if it's internal. Why would you want to share that? So unfortunately, not enough people are talking about the damage that it's done. Why would they advertise that? And unfortunately, it prevents the spreading of knowledge and lessons learned.
But it's also the same thing you think about. They've had the same problem in the cyber industry. So with people sharing potential threats, whether it's a malware threat, whether it's a different signature, whether it's a behavior, because once again, you're telling everybody that, we've been hit. We've been actually attacked. They've made it through our external defenses. And the same thing are your internal defenses. We didn't have the process in place to protect ourselves. So, it's a little bit of, egg in the face. And a lot of organizations don't want that out there. So, setting up insider threat working groups we've done in the past with organizations, having a confidentiality, NDAs in place, I think that's effective sometimes just to control that information to make sure the right people have a need to know and are able to use information effectively.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, there have been many more cases that have become public over the recent year. How would you think companies are responding to this?
A couple things. I think they're putting money towards it. I think more and more money is being kind of put into the IT budgets for insider threat. We're actually seeing line items that are specifically for insider threat. I think it's early on for adoption. I don't think a lot of people are just in the early planning stages. I've talked to many commercial customers that are just in this beginning stage. When I say, do you have an effective program in place? They're like, we're just starting. We're trying to understand the problem. We're trying to understand how we can solve the problem, whether it's through just improving our internal processes, whether it's bringing in technology. I think the idea of insider threat 5 or 6 years ago, nobody would have really, it wasn't a big thing. The government was doing it because the government saw a need. They had a lot more information to protect. But in the commercial, they didn't see it wasn't a pressing need. There wasn't this, oh God moment, that is required to do anything. There wasn't a mandate out there. A lot of mandates that are out there in the United States government, whether it's an executive order 13257 or it's a national guidance and memorandums, there's actually mandates out there for establishing insider threat programs. I think you're seeing it from the latest, I believe, NISPOM's change order 2. You're seeing some of the defense industrial base organizations are required to stand up an insider threat program. So you're starting to see different regulations coming out to help install and actually put together insider threat programs for commercial. But if that's adopted, and it looks like it's going to be adopted, I think that'll start bleeding into compliance for finance organizations. And then all of a sudden that will move into retail. It could be into manufacturing organizations. It could be into power plants and different infrastructures. So you're seeing kind of that buzzword of insider threat and user behavior analytics picking up steam. And I think over the next 5 years, you're going to see more and more companies have a program and actually establish it.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Let's shift to now and talk a little bit more specifically about the federal government. What would you say are or should be the top priorities for the federal government in 2016?
To expand on what they're doing today. I think they have some tremendous programs that are in place today across the United States government. I see those programs, kind of being enterprise level, meaning taking what you've learned today, the lessons learned, and growing those into an enterprise level. And also taking the lessons learned from, for example, different policies that are being written. And when I say policies, different audit policies to be able to look at different types of information, but also being able to bring in a variety of different unstructured data. So if you look at what the government calls continuous evaluation, basically the idea of looking across a person's entire portfolio, not only how they're accessing information, but potentially how they are logging or badging into a building, potentially of any kind of security violations they might have, looking at different things like credit scores, or other aspects that in a kind of a singular moment they're fine, but if you look them over a period of time, looking for fluctuations, looking for anomalies, they could be indicators of somebody who potentially could be in financial trouble and has made a deal with somebody to take information out, is having potentially marital problems, under complete stress, and it's actually not of right mind, and is actually going to be doing stuff that puts the government at risk, opens up vulnerability. I think there's external factors that need to be contributed, not only as part of an insider threat program, but a larger continuous insider evaluation program that needs to be addressed. Now, one thing you need to concern yourself with is privacy. And I want to be clear for everybody. Privacy to me is significant. You have to balance the need to audit and monitor with the privacy of individuals. And I think there are technologies out there, there's processes in place that allow you to kind of get that right size auditing and monitoring, while allowing you to kind of protect people, protect the privacy of individuals. And that's a balance I think a lot of organizations need to consider when they're putting a program together.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a tricky balance, and it's what everybody, I think, is one of the hottest debates right now. I mean, how do you secure while maintaining privacy?
That's right. Exactly.
What are your ideas for working with GTRA's federal chief security officers?
So a couple things. We have to form a kind of a stronger partnership, a strategic partnership. We have to start using some of our partners in a way to get the message out, to be more of a thought leader, not just somebody who's out there selling products, but actually understand the problem, understand our methodology of how we would like to address the problem, and almost be like advocates. Also looking of all our products we have available at Forcepoint, because we have not only some great insider threat products, but we also have some great cross-domain products that you could be integrated with an insider threat solution. We have some great threat protection products, so you can look across the board and say, boy, I'm looking for external threats, and I can actually look for external threats, and I can combine those two threat indicators and get a big picture. So it's the idea of looking for partners like GTRA to kind of take that next step with us, to be more kind of in sync with what we're doing, our vision, our messaging, and to also help us expose to customers we don't have exposure to today, to bring us additional customers, to bring us different customers in different market areas that, they could lead with us supporting as well. So I think it's a good 1-2 punch.
Agreed. What do you think are pressing topics that GTRA needs to address? And more importantly, what can GTRA do to really move the industry forward?
We have to look at more of what I like to call a subject matter expert, a culture of excellence. We have a very diverse product set. One person, one company really can't be have the experience in all the products. If you look at our Triton offering, which is part of the legacy website, it's a different offering than cross-domain, different offering than threat protection, different offerings than insider threat. So how we kind of create that culture of excellence for different product areas that are so diverse will be essential. It's going to be essential to move us forward in the industry, to actually essential of bringing Forcepoint further down the road. As we develop our 4D approach, our Summit analytics platform, I would love GTRA to be part of that and start to understand the benefits of the platform, how different pieces work together, and how they're integrated together, and even the decisions we're making now and down the road. Because just as well as our technology is today, it's all about the roadmap. If you don't have a strategic vision to know where you're going to be at in 5 years, because today is today. The technology we have today is the technology we have today. Our customers, and I believe GTRA's customers, really want to know where you're going to be at in 3 to 4 years. Where are you going to take this product? Are you going to just sit it in mothballs and it's going to kind of spin on its wheels? Or are you going to do something that's unique, something that's dynamic, something that's different? And I think that's the key, that our partners need to be in lock with us as we start to kind of promote our vision, talk about the products, talk about our roadmap, and where we're going to be in the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. It's really been a pleasure getting to know more about you and Forcepoint. We really look forward to you being at the upcoming GTRA Federal Summit as well. For more information on Forcepoint, go to forcepoint.com.
Thank you.
Thank you again for tuning in. Please join us for our next council meeting and upcoming podcasts. Go to gtra.org. Again, I'm your host, Kelly Yoakum, and I look forward to your topic ideas, feedback, and suggested podcast participants. So please feel free to reach out to me at kelly@gtra.org.